Hello everyone, welcome back. So in the previous video we implemented Superbase authentication, and in this video we're gonna work on our user profile section. So now we're gonna create all the tables and the policies in the Superbase. So let's see what are the steps. Okay, we're gonna perform this step, and first we're gonna create an ERD on this platform to see how all the tables will be connected and all the properties for each table. So let's create an ERD, which is an entity relationship diagram, and this is, I believe, a dummy diagram. It has workspaces, users, folder, and in the sidebar you can see all the properties. And I think we can change the properties from here. So let's say if I add bio in the users table, this will be updated on the diagram. So this is very cool, but we're gonna use AI to create all the tables and the properties and create relationships between them. So I will just paste a description of our system. So a social media system where user can log in, sign up, create post, like post, comment on the post, and then receive the notifications. And we already have the users table with all of these properties. Then I will create a post folder so each user can create a one or multiple posts, and we'll have post likes, then post comments, so user can comment on all of the posts. Then finally we'll have the notifications with the sender ID and the receiver ID, and this will create the relationships based on the foreign keys. So let's see what do we get. So it's creating all the relationships and all the tables, and the diagram is complete. So I think it's done a very good job at creating all of these relationships and all the tables. So users have all these fields which we defined. Then it's connected to the post, so each user can create many posts like this. So then each user can receive or send notifications. Then the comments are related to the users, and comments are also related to the posts with the post ID. Then we have post likes, which are also related to the post and then the users. So it has done a very good job at creating the relationships. So if I need to change anything, let's say let's add a city, I can add that, and this diagram will be updated. So now we're gonna create all of these tables into our Superbase project. So let's create a new table for the posts, and we already have the ID and the created add property. So let's add the body property. This will be the text property, and we are gonna use a rich text editor. So this will store all the HTML markup. Then we will have a file property, which will also be a text, and then the user ID. So this will be a UUID which we have in the users table. So for that we will need to add a foreign key relationship. So we're gonna choose the public schema, then the table which we're gonna reference to. So in our case we're gonna reference to the users table. Now we need to select the user ID from the posts table, and then we need to connect it to the ID from the users table. This way a foreign key relationship will be created. Now next we have these actions if the reference row is updated or removed. So if the user is removed, we need to set the user ID as null, but you can also use cascade option to remove the post if the user is removed. So that's done. Now we have all the properties, and we have added the foreign key for the post folder. Now let's save this, and it's gonna create the table. Now Superbase has enabled the row level security for this table, and for that we will need to create a policy so that user can read and write data into this table. So let's create a policy, and we're gonna create a custom policy so we can perform all of these operations. Let's name it allow all, and it will be only for the authenticated roles. So only the authenticated users will be able to perform all of these functions or whatever the function I want them to. But in the sidebar you can see we have the template. So if I choose this, this will enable all the users to read access only, but we don't want that. We want to allow all the authenticated users to perform all of the steps, so all of the actions. So I will choose this, and I will save the policy. Either we can just disable the row level security, or we will need to create the policies for all the tables like this. Now let's create the post likes table, and we already have the ID and the created ad property. Now let's add two more columns, post ID and the user ID. Now these will be the foreign keys, so let's add the relation for them. First with the posts, so the post ID from this table will point to the ID in the post table, and if the reference is removed, we will just set it to null. And let's save this. Now let's add another foreign key for the users table. So the user ID in this table will point to the ID in the users table, and same if the reference is removed, we'll just set it to null. And let's save this, and let's save the table. Okay, so the table is created. Now let's add an RLS policy so that users can add and read data from this table. Let's choose this template and change the name to allow all, and select all the options, then choose the roles as authenticated and save this policy. Okay, now let's create our comments table, new table, and name will be comments. ID created ad, then we'll have a text property, and this will be the type text. Then we will have two foreign keys as the user ID and the post ID. Now let's add the foreign key relationships for both of them. So we need to point the post ID in this table to the ID in the post table like this, and same for the reference row is removed, we'll set it to null and save this. Now let's add the foreign key for the user ID. So the user ID from this table will point to the ID in the users table, and same for this section, this will set it to null, and let's save this. And let's save the table. Ensure that all the columns are assigned a type. Why does the user ID does not have a type? Because we mistakenly added this for the post ID, so we need to edit this reference, and this should be the user ID. And let's save this. So the relations are correct. Now let's save the table, and the table is created. And let's add a new table, notifications. We already have the ID created at. We're gonna have a title property which will be the text, and then we'll have the sender ID who sent this notification, and the receiver ID who will receive this notification. Then we will have a data property to hold the data. This will be just a stringify JSON. So let's add the relation. So both of the sender ID and receiver ID will point to the users table. So the sender ID points to the ID in the users, and this action should be set null, and save this. And let's add for the receiver ID. So this will connect to the users, receiver ID to the ID in the users, and if the reference is removed, we set it to null. Let's save this, and everything's good to go. So let's save the table, and it's created. Now let's add the row level security policy. So let's create the policy, choose the template, allow all, then choose all the options, and for the roles select authenticated, then save policy. Okay, so I think we do not have a policy for the comments table. I think I forgot to do that. So if I go into the comments table, we don't have a policy. So if I go into the notifications, you will see we have added a policy here. So let's add a policy for the comments table. Choose the template, all operations, and this will be allow all, and then I use the roles as authenticated, then save policy. Okay, so with this we have created all of the tables and their policies. So now we are ready to work on our home section. So all of this is done. So next we're gonna work on our home screen design. So we have created all the policies and the tables. So let's create a mock-up of our home screen. So this is our home screen, and let's choose a blank rectangle. Okay, so this works. So this will be our home screen, and on the top we're gonna show the title of our app, which is link up. This will show here, and then we will have three icons on the right side. So first icon will be the heart icon here, and then we will have a plus icon. This will work. And for the third icon we will have a user avatar icon. So let's use this one, make it smaller like this. So all of these will be buttons, so if we click on any, this will open a new screen. So let's just align them correctly like this. So this heart icon will open the notification screen where users can see all of the notification, like who commented on their post. Then plus icon will open the new post screen, and the user icon will open the profile screen. Now let me just use these arrows to point to these straight arrow, and same for the new post and the user profile like this, just to make it clear. So this will be the header section of our home screen, and we will design the rest of the screen later. So our first step is to create the header section, and before I start designing this, I need to copy and paste all the styles for this screen, because if I type and explain all of these styles, this will make this video very longer. So I'll just copy this here and import all of these functions and the theme object, and I'll show you these styles whenever we use them, so that you can just copy them and use them in your application. So here we will have a container view, so let's give this a style of container. Then inside this we will show our header, so let's create a view and give this a style of header. And inside this we're gonna have a text component as the name of our application, so let's give it a style of styles.title. So the name of our application is link up, so let's add it here and save this. So you can see the title is already styled, because for the header we have these styles. We want to make it flex row so that we can show the icons on the other side, and for the title we have these styles using our theme and HP function. So let's go back to header, and here we just need to add another view for the icons. So styles.icons, and inside this we need to add a pressable, and here first we need to add the icon. So let's choose the icon component, and the name will be heart, because we already have this icon into our icons folder. So for the size we're gonna use HP of 3.2, and for the stroke width we'll use 2, and for the color let's use the text color from our theme object and save this. So we can see the heart icon, and if I show you the styles for the icons, this will be in a flex row like this, because we are gonna add other icons, so these should show in a row. So let's just copy this pressable 2 more times for other icons, and we'll change this to plus and this to user for now. So there we have 3 icons on the right side. So whenever user presses on any of the button, this will move to a new screen. So let's create the screens for all of them. Profile.jsx, and we will have another screen as notifications. So let's create a functional component in all of them. Let's change the name to capital. Same for the profile. And when user presses on these actions, we should move to the new screen, and for that we will need to have a router. So let's use the use router hook, and let's add an onPress method on this one, and this will move to notifications. Now let's just copy this function for all of the buttons, and this will move to the new post screen which we haven't created. We'll create it in a second. And this will move to the profile screen. Let's save this. Now let's create this new post screen inside our main folder, new post.gsx, and let's create a functional component and change it to capital name like this. So for this user icon, we're gonna show the user image, and for that we're gonna have another component as the avatar. This will show the user image, and if he doesn't have any, this will just show a default image. So let's just save this and import this here like this. And now this shows the avatar. So let's go to this and start designing. This will receive some properties as the URI, which will be the image URI, and then the size, and the default size will be HP 4.5. Then we will have a rounded property to make the image rounded, and this will have a default value of radius.md from our theme, and a style object if we want to have any. So let's remove this, and here we're gonna use the expo image. So let's import it. I think we haven't installed it yet, so we're gonna use expo image because this has the image cache, so we can use that. So this is the expo image from expo dev website. So let's just copy this command and install this quickly. So with image caching, it will load the image once, and after that it will show the cached image, and that is very helpful for the performance. So we will use this image now, and this has all of these properties which are mostly similar to React Native image component. So let's use this, and let's import the expo image here, which is not auto importing. So let's just import it manually. Image from expo image like this. Now let's add the properties, and we will have a source which will be the URI, and this will be in double brackets like this. And then we will have a transition property which will be 100 millisecond. So this is just a transition until the image shows. And then we will have the styles.avatar, which we will define in a second. And then using the props that we are passing, we need to specify the height and the width of this image. Border radius will be rounded, and then any extra style that we want to pass, so we can just override it into the parent component. Let's close this and now define this avatar style here. So first we'll have the border curve as continuous, then the border color will be the dark light color from our theme, and then the border width will be 1 like this. And let's save this. So we can see the border width and the image is blank because we are not passing the URI from the parent component. So let's go into the parent component, and here we're gonna use the user image. So if I open the console, you will see we have this user object, and here we must have the image property, which is for now it's null, but later we will upload the user data and this will show the image. So we will pass this property URI as the user.image, and then we're gonna pass the size. So we can control the size from the parent component, and let's use HP of 4.3 like this. And the rounded property, to make the image rounded, let's use theme.radius.small, and we can pass any extra style if we want to override the default styles. So let's use the border width of 2. Now we can see our styles. So we're passing the user.image, but it is not showing here, so we need to have a way to show the default image. So let's create a new service. Let's call it image service, and let's create a function here that will return the user image source. So let's call it get user image source, and this will receive an image path, and we will make a condition here. So if we have the image path, in that case we will return an object. So this object will have a URI as the image path. like this. And if we don't have the image path, then we will turn the default image from our assets. So require the image from assets slash images slash default user dot png, like this. Now let's import this function and use this inside this image component instead of using the URI. So get user image source, and we need to pass the URI and save this. So with this we can see the default user image, and that's because right now we don't have the image property on our user data, and because we don't have that, that's why we are seeing this default image. But once we update this, we will see the user image from the database. So let's give this container a background of white from this screen wrapper, like this. And our new screens would be working, so we can go to new notifications, or we can go to the new post. So the header section of our home screen is complete, and at the bottom we're gonna show the user post, but we will do that when we have the post inside our database. So let's just skip all of these steps now and move to our profile screen. So let's create a mock-up screen of our profile. So this will be our profile screen. Let's add a label here, user profile, like this. And first we will have a back button at the top left corner. So let's use an arrow like this, and we will have a back button. Then we will have a user avatar at the center on the top here. This will be big user image. Then after this we're gonna show the user name at the bottom of this image. This will display here. And after this we're gonna show the location. This will be a very small text. This will show after the username. We are also gonna have a logout button on the top right corner, so let's use the circle icon for that, and this will show here. This will be our logout button, so let's add a label for this. Let's make it big, and let's point to this using an arrow like this. So after this username, we're gonna show some more user info as user email. Then we have the user phone number and the user bio. So this will show after the username and the location on this left side. So this will be just the user info, and after this we're gonna show the user posts in this section, but we will do that later. So for now this is the user info, and from this section user will be able to edit his information. So let's add an edit icon on the user image. So first we're gonna start creating this header section for our user. So let's go into the profile section, and here first we will use our screen wrapper, and let's save this. Now we're gonna use the user data on this screen. So first let's get the user and set auth function from our use auth hook, and we will also need the router on this screen. So let's create a router using use router from expo router. Now we're gonna create the user header into a separate component and then use this into the main component. I'll explain later why we are doing this, but for now just do the same. So this will receive the user and a router, and this will return a view. Let's give this a style of flex1 and a background of white. Then inside this let's use a text component that will say user header for now, and let's use this inside our screen wrapper and pass the user and the router properties like this, and let's save this. And we also need to have a background of white for our screen wrapper. Okay, so now we're gonna create a common header component that we can use on multiple screens. So let's define it into our components. Let's create a functional component and save this. Now let's import this in here. Let's just create a view, and inside this import our header component that we just created. This component will show a title and a back button. So for this screen it will be profile. So let's go into the header component, and first we will show a back button here and then the title for this header section. So let's receive the title, and then we will have a property show back button. By default it will be false, and then we will have a margin bottom property, and by default it will be 10 pixels. Now let's create a router so that we can go back from this back button. So let's add a styles for this container as styles.container, and then we are also passing the margin bottom, so let's add margin bottom as MB like this. So let's create a back button using this property. So if show back button is true, only then we're gonna show the back button. So let's create a view, give this a style of styles.back button, and inside this we will have our back button which we already have created. So let's import our back button and pass the router like this, and let's close it and save this. So if I save this, we won't see anything because by default the show back button is false. So for the title, let's add a text. Let's give it a style as styles.text, and inside this we will show the title. If we don't have, then I will just show an empty string like this. So let's add the styles for the container. Let's use flex direction as row, justify content center, align items into the center as well. Then we will have a margin top of 5 pixels and a gap of 10 pixels. So let's save this. So now we can see the profile text. So let's add a styles for the profile title. So title will have a responsive font size using HP of 2.7. Then let's add a font weight. Let's make this semi bold using our theme object. So we have all of these predefined fonts into our theme object. So if I go into this theme, we have medium, semi bold, extra bold. So let's use the color as the text dog color from our theme. Okay, so the title looks good, and now we can go into the parent component and change this show back button to true. So let's add this property here, show back button, and make it true. So we can see the back button, but it shouldn't display here. So we need to have the back button styles. So let's change these styles to back button, and let's make it absolute. So back button will have the position as absolute and the left property as 0, so that it shows on the left side like this. So now we're gonna have a padding around the content into the main screen. So let's go into the profile section, and inside this container, let's use a padding horizontal of 4% using our WP function like this. So now we have a padding. So if I click on the back button, we should go back to the previous screen, and it's working. Now let's add a logout button after this header. So let's add a touchable opacity. We're gonna make it absolute so that it shows on the top right corner. So let's give it a style of logout button. Then we're gonna have a function handle logout. So inside this button, we're gonna show the logout icon. So let's import our icon component, and name will be logout, and the color will be the rose color from our theme object like this. Now let's add this handle logout function in our profile component. This will be an async function, and we're gonna later add a confirm model to confirm if user wants to log out. So let's just add a comment for now, and let's save this. Okay, so handle logout doesn't exist. Did we got the name right? Okay, so we need to pass it into the user header so that we can access it from this component right here. So now we can see the logout button, but we need to have some styles for it. So I'm just gonna copy and paste the styles for this whole component, and I'll show you the styles whenever we use them, so you can just copy and use in your application. So let's just import this WP and HP function, and the theme is already imported. So let's save this, and now you can see the button is styled and it's on the top right corner because we have the following styles for this. The position is absolute. So now when we click on this icon, it should confirm the user that if he really wants to log out. So we're gonna use alert from React Native, and the title will be confirm, and we're gonna display a message, are you sure you want to log out? And for the third option, we can have an array of the options that we want to display. So each option has some properties, so the text that we want to show. Then we have an onPress function which executes when we click on this button. So for now it will just console log a message, model cancelled. Then we have a style property which we have predefined values for, so we can use cancel style for this button. Then we will have a logout button. This will say log out, and onPress method will trigger an on logout function which will create in a second. And for the style we will use destructive, so it will give like a red color to our button. So for the logout function, we already have that into our home section, so let's just copy this on logout function and paste this into our profile screen. Now let's import the Superbase client, and everything else seems all right. So let's save this and see if this is working. So now if I click on this icon, we see the model, and if I cancel it, we see model cancelled. Now let's see if the logout functionality is working, and we're moving to welcome screen. The user is null, so everything is working perfectly. So let's go to login and log in with my account. Okay, so now we don't need this logout on the home screen, so let's just comment it down. We need to comment this function, and we also need to comment this button at the bottom. Okay, so now let's move to home screen and start showing the profile data on this screen. And in here we're gonna create a new container, so let's create a view with a style of container, and inside this let's create another view and give it a gap of 15 pixels. Then here we're gonna show the profile image, so let's just import our avatar component that we created earlier, and let's give this a URI of user.image, and we already receiving this user from the parent component. Then the size will be HP of 12. This is going to be a big image of the user. Now we also gonna make this rounded, so we're gonna need a bigger border radius. So what we will do is use double XL from our theme, and we will multiply it by 1.4, and let's close it and save it. So now we can see the default user image, but it's not into the center. So let's create another view and give it a style of avatar container, which we already have into our style sheet, and let's move this inside this container. Okay, so let's save this, and now the image is into the center, and we have the following styles for the avatar container. So align self to the center so that it shows into the center. Now we're gonna create another button for the edit profile action. So let's create a pressable, then import the icon. Name will be edit, and let's use a stroke width of 2.5, and then the size will be 20 pixels. Let's save this. So there we can see the edit icon, but let's add the styles for this. Style will be styles.edit icon, And let's save this. Now it's showing on top of the image because it has a position of absolute and have the following styles which you can copy. And we also have a shadow on this icon because the background is white and the background of the screen is white, so that's why I added a shadow. Let's move to the edit profile screen when we press on this icon. So router dot push to edit profile, which we will create later. So let's save this. So we need to have some spacing between the profile and the user image, and this profile is coming from the header, so let's go into the header. And this needs to be true by default, so let's make it true, and we can pass margin bottom to have a little spacing. So now we don't need this property, it's true by default, and let's add a margin bottom of 30. And let's save this. Now we have a spacing between these two. Now let's add another view for the username and the address of the user. So let's just make a comment, username and the address. Then let's create a view and give this a style of align items into the center, and let's add a gap of 4 pixels. Now let's add a text and give it a style of username. And then here we already have the user data, so we'll just display the username. So if we have the user, then display the username, and let's save this. So we can see the username from my account. Now for the username we have the following styles. Now let's just copy this text one more time for the user address, and let's change this to info text, which is a style for small text, and change this to address. So for now we don't see the address because we don't have this into the user data. So if I remove this and add New York here, you will see this is how it will show the address of the user. So now let's add another view after this to show the user email, phone and the bio. Let's add a view and give this a gap of 10 pixels, and we're gonna display the user email here. So let's wrap it inside another view and give it a style of info. So we're gonna add an icon and then the email, so we have the following style for the info. So let's add the icon. Let's use the icon component and give this a name of mail. Then the size will be 20 and the color will be the text light color from our theme object. And let's save this. So now we can see the email icon. Now let's add the user email, so text, and give this a style of info text. Then here if we have the user, then we'll display the user email dot email like this, and this will it should display the username, but it's not for some reason. So let's see, in the console we have the user data, address, bio, and the email is null. Okay, so now let's see, in the superbase we should have that into the users table, and we don't have the email here. So let's see into our function, because our function is basically storing this data. So let's edit function. So here is the issue, we stored the user ID and the name, but we forgot to add the user email. So we can handle this situation in two ways. One is to delete all the users, then modify this and then register all the users again, or we can find a patch on our front end. So one way to handle this is to go into our layout, and here we are getting the user session. So I think we can use the email from the session data. So let's console log the auth user, and let's see what data do we getting into the session user. Okay, so let's see, in the console we have the auth user here, and we do have the email property on this user. So if I console log the email and save this, so Here we have the auth user, and this is my email. So now we can use this user data when we update the user data into our context. So let's go into this function, uh, sorry, this set user data function. And here we can just add the email as the user.email, because when we are setting this, we already have the user from the session, so this will just save the user email. So let's just refresh the app, and the email is still undefined. Maybe the user session data was still null at this point. So let me just remove all of the console logs because the terminal is a bit messy. So let's go to home and comment this user as well. Now let's try to console log the session user when we are updating this user data to see if we actually have any user data in this state. So this will be the session user data. So let's save this, and our user is null. So we can't do this. We will need to find another way. We don't have the user session data here, but we do have this inside this use effect. So we can just pass the user email to this function and then receive the email here. So we can get the email on session.user.email, and we can pass this email alongside with the response.data, and this will update the user state into our context. So let's save this, and in our auth context now we don't need to set this email here. So let's just remove this and save this, and we need to uncomment this user state to see if you are getting the email, and yes, we do. Now we have this email property, and this will now show on the profile. So this is not the best way to implement this. We're only doing this because I made a mistake while I was creating the trigger and the function. So when you do this, you make sure you add the email as well, so you don't have to do this. So now let's just copy this for the user phone number, and for the icon we're gonna use the call icon, and here we're gonna display the user phone number. But for now we don't have his phone number on this data, so it won't display. So let's make a condition here. If we have the user and the user phone number, only then we will display this block, so that if we don't have the user phone number, we don't even see this call icon. So let's save this, and we don't see the call icon. Now at the bottom we are going to display the user bio, so let's make a condition here as well. If we have the user and the user bio, then we're going to display a text, and this will have a style of info text, and this will just simply display user.bio. And let's save this. So we won't see the bio for now because we don't have it on the user data. But if I remove this condition and in here I just add a random text, this is how the bio will show. But we will implement this when we implement the edit profile screen. So if I click on this edit button, this will move to the edit profile screen, which we haven't created yet. So let's go into our main folder and create edit profile. Then let's create a functional component. Let's change this to capital name, and let's save this. So let's also import the screen wrapper so that we can see the text properly. Let's save this, and now if I click on the edit button, we move to the edit profile screen. So before we start developing, let's create a mockup of the edit profile screen in our editor here. So the header is done, logout button is done, user details are done. We work on the user post section later, but for now we need to work on the edit profile screen. So let's create an edit profile screen here. Let's move this to the side of the profile in here. So this screen will open when we click on the edit icon. So let's point to this like this, and this will be our edit profile screen. And on the top left corner we're gonna have a back arrow icon to go back to the previous screen. So let's add this icon here. Then we're gonna also have the user profile image here, not this one. Let's use this one. So this is also going to be a big image of the user, and if user clicks on this, we'll be able to pick any image from the gallery. So after this we're gonna have a text box to edit the name of the user. This will say name. Then let's copy this for the user phone number and for the user address as well. Then we're gonna have a multi-line input for the user bio, so it will show like this, and user will be able to enter his bio. At the bottom we're gonna have this button that will update the user data. This will say update, and we're gonna match it to our theme like this. So when we click on this is going to update the data into the users table, and also we will update the user state into our context so that we can use this data anywhere into our application. So this is it for this video, and in the next video we will implement the edit profile screen. So see you in the next one.